Hey guys, it's Tony with Thrill the Grill. Are you guys thinking about putting bigger tires on your Jeep TJ, but you're not really sure what lift to go with to get those tires on that Jeep? Well, today I'm going to help you guys figure out what lift kit to put on your Jeep TJ. The first thing you guys need to do when you're trying to figure out what tires and what lift you want to put on this TJ is you got to figure out what you want to spend on it. Is this a budget build? Do you want to put a little bit of money into it, or are you just ready to go all in on it? And then the next thing you need to do is what is going to be the purpose of the Jeep? Are you just going to drive it on the road? So you just want to put a slightly bigger tire on it? You can go do a little mild wheeling, or this thing's just going to be meant to go off-roading. So that's like this Jeep here that I'm working on. That is going to be a budget lift, budget wheels, budget tires, you know. So we're not going to go crazy with that. And then I got another Jeep out here, this TJ here. This one is meant to pretty much just off-road. It's 5.5-inch lift, 37s. And then my one that I daily drive, but I also wheel, will be right here. So that one's on a 4.5-inch lift with 35s. So that's definitely what you want to figure out is what you're going to be doing with this Jeep and how much you want to spend on it. You can figure it out. You have the transmission figured out. You have your gear ratio figured out. You have a budget in mind, and you also know what you're going to be doing with your Jeep TJ. We're going to start out with if you have a smaller budget and you're just looking to get tires on your Jeep to make it look a little better, maybe do some light wheeling, stuff like that. The best lift kit I would say for you would be anywhere from 1.5 inches to a 2.5-inch lift kit. Now, with those lift kits, you do not have to change that much with it. It's pretty much either a puck lift with shocks or springs with shocks. You don't have to change track bars, control arms, do transfer case drop brackets or drive shafts or anything like that. Now, with those lift kits, 1.5-inch lift, you can get a 31-inch tire in there, and then a 2-inch lift, they recommend up to a 32, and then a 2.5-inch lift kit, they also still only recommend up to a 32-inch tire. Now, when you're ordering your lift kit, majority of the time, in the drop down online, there's recommendations on there, and they'll tell you what tire size they recommend with that lift kit. Now, I have put a 2.5-inch lift kit on a TJ and still ran 33-inch tires, but you have to watch. You have to have the right back spacing on your wheels, and I still had a little bit of rubbing, but for what I wanted to do with it, wasn't a big deal. Now, if you guys aren't looking into putting a lift at all on your Jeep, there is a way to get bigger tires on it without having a bunch of rubbing, and that is putting flat fenders on it. I have put flat fenders on a TJ, and I fit up to a 35-inch tire on the TJ. Now, on that note, you also do have to watch the back spacing on your wheels because you can have some rubbing. So pretty much you get the proper back spacing for the wheels you want and get your tires. You can put flat fenders on it and run up to a 35-inch tire. Before we get too far, if you have a Jeep TJ with a 4-cylinder engine and you're on a budget and you don't want to re-gear, I would not recommend going over a 33-inch tire. You're going to sacrifice some drivability for sure. You get out on the highway, it's going to be sluggish, it's going to be a little bit of a dog, but that's going to be a trade-off that you're going to have to be willing to sacrifice if you want to go up to a 33-inch tire with a 4-cylinder engine on the TJ. Now, if you have a 4-liter engine and it's the straight 6, you can get up to a 35-inch tire, and you can do okay. Now, it depends on the gear ratio also. If you have a 307, it's going to be a little bit of a dog on the highway, but you know what? With that 4-liter, it'll make up for it. Now, if you have 373 gears, it won't be so bad. If you have the Rubicon with the 410 gears, even better. So if you're on a budget with the 4-liter engine, you can get up to a 35-inch tire without sacrificing too much drivability. Now, it depends on your gear ratio. Is going to depend on how well it's going to drive on the highway. So this TJ here had a 4-inch lift on it with 35s, and it had the 307 gears. It's the 4-liter engine. Drove it like that for years. There was a little bit of power loss on the highway, but it did okay. Now my daily driver back here, this TJ, I had 35s on it for years, running the stock gears, which was a 373, and to be honest with you, it didn't do too bad at all. Now if you have a Rubicon with the 410 gears, I mean, that would be even better. But now I'm running 488 gears with that TJ, but it's a little overkill. I'm planning on going to 37s with it, so I geared it to run 37s. Maybe you're looking to go a little bit taller lift. Maybe you want a little bit bigger tires. Your budget, you might have a little more money you want to spend, and you're okay with doing a little extra modifications. Once you get to a 3-inch lift or taller, I would recommend definitely having upper adjustable control arms. The number one reason why is once you get your Jeep to a certain height, it's going to change your caster angles, and your Jeep is going to drive horrible. You're going to have bumps there. It's going to be all over the road. So having upper adjustable control arms in the front, you'll be able to dial in your caster angles. And then secondly, having rear upper adjustable control arms, you'll be able to adjust your driveline angles back to where they need to be so you don't have any driveline vibrations. Now, with going to that 3-inch or taller lift, you're also going to need to either do a skid plate drop bracket with a 4-wheel drive linkage relocation bracket, or you're going to have to put an SYE kit in with a new drive shaft. So for the transfer case drop bracket, I have ran those for years, and they worked. Now, the thing is, they don't get them back to exactly where the drive lines need to be, but it definitely helps. To be honest with you, if you're doing a 3 to 4-inch lift and you want to do that drop bracket to get you by until later on you want to put a new drive shaft with the SYE kit in, it's really not that bad of a thing to do. Now, the issue that I have had with doing that drop bracket is when you put the drop bracket on the 4-wheel drive linkage and it moves it down, sometimes you start getting binding. Now, there is a solution to that is instead of having the linkages, the metal linkages for the 4-wheel drive, you can turn that into a cable, and it eliminates all that binding. So if you do that skid plate drop and you're having binding issues, just go ahead and put that cable shift linkage in there. That'll get you where you need to go. Okay, now with putting on the skid plate drop bracket, a lot of these skid plate bolts now, since the TJs are getting older, the nut inserts that are in the frame, they usually tend to spin or the bolts break, and you have a lot of issues with dropping that skid. Now, if you do the drop bracket and you're having issues with that skid plate, you can go to the dealership. They used to have the nut inserts that you can reinstall in the frame to fix that issue. Now, most of the time, I don't even do that anymore. Now when I have the issues with these bolts spinning and I don't have the nut certs, I just drill all the way through the frame and I'll run a long bolt and I'll just nut and bolt it, and usually I don't have any problems. So you definitely want to stay away from welding the skid plate to the frame. If you can't find the nut inserts, then just drill all the way through, get a long nut and bolt, and that'll get you where you need to go. For those of you that don't want to do the drop bracket for the transfer case and transmission, and you want to do the SYE kit, this right here, and you're not really sure what it is, this right here is the original drive shaft and slip yoke on a TJ. So what the SYE kit does, it eliminates this shaft here that comes out of the transfer case. I'll roll under one of the TJs out there and I'll show you the SYE kit. You can see right here, this is the big difference with that SYE kit. So it changes the tail housing cover on the transfer case, and then it eliminates that very long slip yoke here, and it goes to just a normal yoke, and then a double cardigan joint on your drive shaft, and then just down to the normal drive shaft here. So what this does, it allows you to be able to have a little bit steeper angle with that double cardigan joint without having any vibrations. So you want to put a 3-inch or taller lift on your Jeep. You also need to do track bars. The reason why is if you leave this factory track bar on here, you don't change that, and you put that tall spring on there, what it's going to do is going to shift your axle far to one side. Putting a adjustable track bar on there, and that allows you to center that axle under the Jeep, so you're not dog tracking down the road, and it still has good drivability. Now, one thing is when you go to, I would say like 3 to a 4-inch lift, as long as you get a front adjustable track bar, and then usually they sell a rear track bar relocation bracket for the rear track bar. And that usually does pretty good. Now, you can do adjustables front and rear if you want, but usually anywhere from the 3 to 4-inch lift, as long as you do a front adjustable track bar and a rear track bar relocation bracket, that'll get you in the ballpark to where you're not driving all over the road and still has pretty good drivability with that lift kit. You also need to be mindful of what axle you have in the rear of this Jeep. If you have a Dana 35 axle in the rear of this TJ, I would not go over a 35-inch tire. I've seen so many axle shafts and pinions break on these Dana 35s. I just will not trust it. Now, if you had a Dana 44, you can go up to a 37-inch tire, and I wouldn't worry about it. I have seen people run 40-inch tires on Dana 44s. Now, if you're not doing a bunch of upgrades to that axle, I definitely wouldn't push it that far. But you could thankfully run a 40, but I wouldn't go over a 37 running a Dana 44 unless you really upgrade that axle. Now, to be able to figure out what axle is in your Jeep, it's really not that hard. The easiest way to do is just take the last out of your VIN, call the dealership. They can tell you what rear axle, what front axle come in your TJ. Now, if you don't think it's the stock axles, the easiest way to do is just get online and find a chart that has a bunch of diff covers on it. You just compare your diff cover to what the chart has online. So if you're looking for a Dana 44, you just compare your diff cover to a Dana 44 diff cover on that chart, and vice versa. If you're looking for a Dana 35, compare your diff cover to a Dana 35 diff cover on that chart, and it's fairly easy to do. So that can help you figure out what axles you have on this, so you can know what your limits are going to be tire size wise. Okay. For this video, guys, we're just talking about the TJ. So it's 97 to the 06 models. We're going to go over what size lift you can run with what size tire. Now, we're not talking about the lift having flat fenders on it, anything like that. I'm just talking about the lift and what tires you can run with it. So an 1.5 inch lift kit. For the TJ, you can fit a 31, a 2-inch lift, you can fit a 32, a 2.5-inch lift, still 32s, a 3-inch lift, 33s, 3.5-inch lift, 35s, a 4-inch lift, still 35s, 4.5-inch lift, 37s, 5.5-inch lift. You can run a 38, and then usually you don't get too much taller than that. But like I said, if you run these lift kits with highline fenders, you can fit a bigger tire on it. So just for an example, if I was to run a 3.5-inch lift with highline fenders, I can probably run a 38-inch tire. With a 3.5-inch lift and a highline fender, I can run a 38. So if you do something like that, that's not bad to do because it keeps your center of gravity a lot lower. So when you get to these tall lifts, they get a little tippy when you're going up to a 5.5-inch lift and 38s. So that's definitely something you want to have to look into if you want to try to keep your center of gravity kind of low, but you want that bigger tire. But Just for lift references, these are the size lifts you can run with these size tires, and that's not with doing any highline fenders or anything like that. Got your lift kit on there, you got your tires on it, and you do want to change the gears on this Jeep, and you're not really sure what route to go. I'm not going to dive crazy in the gears right now, but I'm just going to tell you, Morris 4x4, and Quadratech have charts on their website that will give you the correct gear ratio to go with the correct tire size, and they also give you the RPMs that it's going to run at. So if you're not really sure, jump on one of those websites, and they give you really good charts to reference. I am not sponsored by either one of them. I just want to be able to help you guys out, figure out what gear ratios you want to run with your tire size. Now, I will give you some of my experiences. Usually to run a 31 to 32 inch tire, I've run 410 gears, no problems. Now, when I ran a 35 inch tire, a 456 gear is really good with that. A 37 inch tire, 48 gear, really well. And then I've had some people that I know that run a 40 with a 513 gear, and it does really well for them. Now, those are just some of my experiences. Now, I know some people might not agree with those gears, but those are my experiences, and I know they worked pretty well. But if you're not really too sure, check one of those websites out, and they can give you a really good reference on what you want to run. All right, guys, if you guys liked the video, please like, share, subscribe. If you guys have any questions of anything that I talked about today, please leave a comment. I would love to be able to help you out. This is my passion, and I enjoy doing this stuff. So if I can help you out, I would definitely leave a comment, and I'll get back to you.